All righty. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for the March 8th edition of Meaningful Conversation, Chats That Will Change Your Life. I'm Denise Stiegel. I'm the CEO and curator, and of course, your host here at Meaningful Conversations and of Living Healthy List. Did I say that? CEO and curator at Living Healthy List, and your host here at Meaningful Conversations. This month, we have been talking about resilience and self-definition, values, those things that really bring us up a level in life, and how resilience, and we've talked about this a little bit, and how resilience is more than just kind of getting by. You're just kind of struggling through. There's a little bit more to it than that. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Our panelists today are LuAnn Buechler, Susan Axelrod, and Lisa Tuccio. And momentarily, I'll have them give a brief synopsis of who they are and what they do. But I want to first mention, I am wearing purple today in honor of International Women's Day. And I think this is a great day for all of us here, because we have all grown up in a world where, when we were younger, there was the, girls did this and ladies acted like that, and you can't do this because fill in the blank. Yet each of us has lived a life, had careers, done so many amazing things to get to where we are today. Was the path easy? Of course not. There's no path that is a straight line, as I used to say. It really is a crooked climb when you're looking for flourishing in your life and your business. We come into detours. Sometimes we have to make a couple of twists and turns. But I think the interesting piece is, no matter what, we are where we are today because of all of those. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that in a moment. I love to have these conversations because we really do lift each other up. Each of us has such incredible insight and experience that supports each other. And sometimes, as much as I have these conversations, I learn something new every time that I can incorporate into my life, into my way of thinking, and truly help me to flourish. And that is the goal here, is to excite and to engage. Engagement is really important. These conversations are so important, but also to educate and empower each of us to make those difficult decisions, do the things that we're afraid to do, but truly to empower you to just take the chance and do it. That's how we flourish in life. So I would like to talk a little bit about, I think I actually said a little bit about our conversation topic, resilience. We've been talking about resilience, self and self-definition. And I think it means something a little different to each of our speakers, our panelists today. So I am going to open this up just for 2 minutes to each of our panelists. I think we'll go in alphabetical order by last name. So Susan, if you would, just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how this conversation of resilience and self-definition and values, what that means to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for offering me an opportunity to be on this platform today. I'm Susan Axelrod, the Confidence Coach. I work with women in the second half of life who are looking out ahead at a stretch of 20, maybe 30 years and wondering where the purposefulness is now at this life stage. Whether you have children who are now grown and gone, whether you've grown a career, whether you've been a community volunteer, the second half of life offers a freedom and flexibility often, if you feel confident to be able to attack it. Now, this year, I am focusing on women in business. I have developed a system that I call the Intuitive Business System, based on my own work over the last 10 years, building a profitable coaching practice. So I actually teach a system, and what I call it business confidence coaching. I'm not just a business coach. I'm a business confidence coach, helping women who are in business grow their accounts. I'm getting fiercer and fiercer about women having financial stability, security, and flexibility, and eventually freedom. And I find that many women in the second half of life who have started businesses on their own are not growing their financial accounts. So that brings me to resilience, the idea of resilience, overcoming things, overcoming, resiliently facing the struggles, those twists and turns that you talked about. I have my own journey. I am the confidence coach. I go live every day, except when I'm on vacation in Hawaii, which I have been for the last few days. I go live and I share and reveal that I too have things going on in my life. 100% of us do. And so that I might also is not really a concern. It's how I face resiliently, and honestly, I will say that Living Healthy List's theme this year has helped me really bring it in and grapple. And so today, I think we're going to also be talking later about mission and purpose and goals and how that affects resiliency and vice versa. But honestly, from resilience comes confidence. And that's what I help women with in life and in business.
I love it. Love it. Thank you, Susan. And you are so powerful and stand true to your mission. And I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Miss LuAnn, if you would, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how that resilience comes in, what that means to you. And yes, we will go a little bit later to talk specifically, more specific on goals and mission and how that works with resilience.
So I kind of put the thread together. By the way, I'm LuAnn B, or LuAnn Buechler, but you can find me at luannb.com, and I'm a business coach and transformational speaker. And I operate from a world of helping people to identify their top 5 passions and setting a course to living that in their life. What does that translate? That translates to their core values, right? And in business, when I work with businesses, it translates to their core values for their business, right? And we say your passions are like breadcrumbs leading you on your path to your purpose, which is another one of our conversations, right? So they're emotional clues that help you stay on track with just what you were designed to be, which builds the confidence that Susan was talking about. And then what we do in our work is we build a vision for the future, a big, beautiful story, because it's easier for us to dream big, far off into the future and not be afraid than worry about what my success is going to be tomorrow. So we create this big, beautiful vision for the future, and then we chunk it backwards, and then we get into those action plans and setting goals and what our milestones are going to be to achieve this and get us on the momentum of the full picture of what we want to create. And that confidence, as Suzanne said, is that resilience built in. When you are confident in who you are authentically, at your very core, it builds confidence in that. And you get stronger and stronger, thus building the resilience. One of our other favorite quotes in our passion work is, when you're following your passions, the ups and downs of life fail to take you off course. Because they will happen. You will have ups and downs in life. Things are thrown at you all the time. But when you have a clear vision of where you're going and who you are, then you can be resilient through those times and come out the other side. Quick example, dear brother of mine, 8 years ago, had a stroke that disabled him. For the first few years of that stroke, I was by his side all the time. I was his patient advocate. I was his voice in this journey. And what did I have to do? I had to set my business aside and not worry about it. Sure, I still worked, but not the way I do now when I'm no longer his direct caregiver. So I was confident, though, that where I was going was still going to come someday. I just knew I had to take that because family is important to me in my passions. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so then you don't feel like you don't have to beat yourself up or, be sad about where you're at. You can still be resilient and go, it's going to be okay.
Exactly. And that's what I talked about earlier, that crooked climb, we're kind of like here, like, when you think about climbing a mountain, you don't just climb the mountain straight up. Though I've been on a couple of mountain hikes and it definitely seems that way. If you're afraid of heights. Anyway, so next we have Miss Lisa Tuccio.
Yes.
Lisa, please tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and
right.
how this resiliency, this word resilience, how what that means to you.
I'll put that right in there. So my name is Lisa Tuccio, and I created Go All In on You because you are the main character in your own life, and how we can create being our authentic self. So when we do that, we become more knowing of ourselves. We can really develop in our self-concepts of who we are. We can lean into ourselves and determine our life and our life purpose and what we want to do. I help people, men and women, find their voice and their it factor so that they can share that with the world, whether it's in their professional life or it's in their personal life. People that know that they are struggling with their past issues, where they really haven't been able to really define who they are because of past issues that they've been struggling with that keep getting in their way, and in their relationships with others that filters out into their workplace and into their personal life. So the way I see resilience is that we all have the capacity to be resilient and build that into ourselves and into our life. It's becoming sure-footed in who we are and very knowing in ourselves and knowing in our paths, and that we can create the person that we want to become. And then that can walk into what we're going to talk about later, about our purpose, our visions and goal setting and things like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So Diane and Monica, thank you for joining us today. We will open this up in a little bit and have a full-fledged conversation, but I do want our panelists to kind of chew on this this question of, how do you define mission and purpose, and how do your goals kind of fit in there to achieve this resilience that we've been talking about this year, and really how that all fits and how that works. So I'll, either of you, Lisa, Susan, or LuAnn.
I'd love to start, if that's okay, Lisa and LuAnn. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm so happy to know you. I've been thinking about this quite a bit since I was scheduled for this meaningful conversation. And right now, everything I'm doing is in the context of the month, the week, and the day our world shut down. And because of Living Healthy List's theme this year of resilience, I did not invoke resilience in my work a lot. I hadn't talked about it. It wasn't part of what I do. It's of course underlying, but the idea of it wasn't my language. So I've been working as a Living Healthy List expert to integrate the theme this year. And I thought about this idea that 2 years ago, this month, the world shut down, not just your community or yours, but the entire world. And everything that we knew was in a spin. We could each tell the stories, and everything that we knew was in a spin. And when that happens, it's obviously it's like dizzying. And that's one of those twists and turns that you talked about earlier, Denise. And I'm more visualization oriented than goal oriented. But let's be realistic. You visualize where you want to be, AKA goals. And I wanted to suggest the idea that after we got through our dizzying tailspin of March, April, May, June, we were all in it. And we really didn't know how to be as a world, and all the way down through to the individuals. What helped many people at that time was finding something purposeful to do. And that was make masks. And so I really want to invoke this idea that at that time, when nearly 100%, except the most narcissistic of us all, were in this dizzying place, not knowing, they found something purposeful to do, and they set to a mission. I bet all of us know at least one person who made masks, right? With the sewing machine, or they organized the making of masks. And then they set a goal, every day or every week or every month. How many masks did I make? So this was on a microcosm of the big scale, mission, purpose, planning. But it helped those people, and many of us who watched it. I didn't make masks. I was in awe of those people. I was already in a purposeful place in my business, knowing that my job was to keep doing my business. But I watched them, and I saw the purposefulness, I saw their mission, and I saw their goals lift them out of that tailspin and had them be very purposeful. And so those goals of how many did you make? How many can we give? How many can you ship? Where are you shipping them to? How far? These metrics. So I wanted to bring this in, as especially on this day. And honestly, International Women's Day, it was mostly women who were doing that. So that's one way I wanted to, start our conversation and see what you guys think of that.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because as you were talking about that, I remember watching the Today Show one morning, and there was a young girl, maybe she was 7 or 8, in an underserved community in Baltimore. And she was seeing how, people like her family and her school and people had masks, but there were a lot of people in her community who she saw who didn't. And she took it upon herself. I mean, truly, a 7 or 8-year-old little girl said, what about those people? They need protection too. And this little girl had this incredible mission. She got her parents involved and her school involved. I mean, she was on the Today Show. I mean, that's a pretty good example of a young girl who is, going to be one of these people who we're going to see again in the future, because she did have a mission. She may not have known that's what it was. And so it's interesting that mission is, our mission, our purpose. I think we get to a certain place in life and we go, oh, what is our purpose? What is our mission? What are our goals? A lot of us get to that. But did we know that when we were kids? We may have had a much clearer idea of mission, our mission, whether they were, small goals for a child. I mean, I think that was the mask girl was a pretty big deal. But
well, the place for this little child was resilience, honestly, because otherwise she might have been curled up in a ball on a couch from fear, or just watching television in enervated energy. Yeah. So I do love that.
Yeah, I wish I could remember.
I think what you're hitting something there, Denise, about using this language with children and students of passion and purpose and vision, all of that language. I don't think that when I was growing up, they were using that language. They were using, here's your textbook, do what I tell you to do. And if you get an A, you're a good girl, And the world has shifted, and it's all about meaning and what's meaningful to us. And so I think that's why people struggle to come back. We're reprogramming people to think differently, and not just about the goal or the dollar figure I can make, but about what is the meaning in this work? What is my purpose on this planet? So one of the things in our work is we help people to discover what we call your unique contribution statement. Might have historically been seen as a unique selling proposition, okay? But I like our language so much better, because what I've learned through my work in the passion test processes for the last 12 years is that all of us want is to contribute. We just want to contribute to the greater good of this world. And boy, now more than ever do we see this. If we look at the news right now and what's going on in the world, I see a whole different world coming together around contributing to the greater good of humanity than I've ever seen before. And sometimes it's only that we can now see it because of our conscious awareness. So the women in this room are at a different level of conscious awareness than maybe others, which is why our community is beautiful to share with the world, because we may just be one step ahead of somebody else, but we can inspire them to join the journey with us and build that confidence and that resilience to get through things like we're dealing with in the world today. And I've said this before on many of our conversations at Living Healthy List. Had I not been on the transformational journey in my personal life that I've had in the last 12 years, given the world situation, I probably would be the one curled up in the ball in the corner going, I have no idea what to do with this. But what I have found is my purpose is to bring joy. And so no matter what's going on, that's where I'm at, right? I even told my sister one day, she was complaining about the politics on TV, and this was a few years during, some presidential election. Anyway, I said, you know what? I said, I tell you what, you worry about that. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to bring joy, because it's going to counteract the negativity that you're spewing in the world. And that's where I find myself and where I need to be to feel I'm making a positive contribution, bringing my light into the world, that hopefully if all of us do that, we start to combat the negativity on the other side.
I think that's an important thing you just said about, your mission is to bring joy. I think so often, and I know I've always, been, kind of coming from the corporate world, my mission and goals were always very different. They were always truly measurable. We did this much in sales, we had this much in, these many new people, whatever that, that might have been. But I think as we get older, we realize that there's more to our mission and our goals and our vision. And Lisa, I'd like to open this up to you, because that's something that, I know you've talked about here and there, and would really like your insight on that, with mission and goals and purpose.
Well, from my experience, it really takes one person to cause an effect, like we see one person doing one thing that can cause an effect based upon their experience. And I know, like, for me, in my direct circumstances, COVID wasn't as hard as it was for a lot of people because of my blindness, because of being through the AIDS epidemic. I understood what it was like to experience this. And now we're seeing everybody to some level experience a health potential, a health crisis in the world. And so then I could shift, myself and shift myself in with my experience and talk to people about how did I manage the AIDS crisis, when I was infected. How did that help? How was it? I remember early on in COVID where people were shaming others. You caught COVID, what did you do to deserve that? That was early on. People were like that. And, how can we help people understand disease and stuff like that? And I could shift into that role, and so I knew I was a little bit stronger and I could do a little bit more. And then it was fulfilling. And it spoke to my purpose in life of where I wanted to be and how could I do more of that. I knew that created an ability for me to reach out to my neighbors. We started doing things like, having picnics on my driveway and, doing things like that. And that brought out the community. My whole street ended up coming to that, and so one person can really, drive something, and it continues on and on, even beyond pandemic, where you're talking about joy and bringing joy to other people. How can we do that? And that, kind of rolls into all of that. And, I use my purpose as my inside stuff. What I develop inside of me, and my goals and my mission are a reflection of all of that and attract people around all that. I think of mission as what brings people together, the big statement that people can buy into.
And I think that's a good, sorry, LuAnn, I'll give you just 1 second and we'll go to you. I think what's important about that is, so often we think mission is just a personal, it's about us. And I really appreciate how it starts with you, but it's about others.
Yeah.
LuAnn, you were going to add.
Well, I was going to say, I liked the concept of, just starting with one person and what impact that one person can have. And we might not all see it. We might not make the international stage of a Mother Teresa or any, of these other people in the world, but we're still making enough impact. And so just as I told my sister, I'm like, you go back to Washington, D.C. and you take care of that. I'm going to take care of my little world here, and I'm going to spread joy here. Okay. And then watch for that ripple effect to happen. And so we often, as women, especially, I think, men too, we're always comparing ourselves to the success of other people. And then that's a tool we use to beat ourselves down and say we're not good enough or whatever. We don't have enough of this, that. We're not smart enough. We're not tall enough. We're not whatever, right? And so stop with the yardstick hitting yourself, right? And just, if you helped one person today get through their day against the odds of what's going on in the world, that's enough.
I love this idea. And also it does come back to seeing yourself in a resilient way. Lisa, I wrote down when you were talking that you're sharing your story. I wasn't aware of it. I'll look forward to, learning more about it, reading more about it. Literally at that time, I can't imagine the obstacles, everything, all the obstacles. And then you obviously are sitting here today. And so you got through those obstacles somehow to today. And now here we are today, and you offer leadership because of those obstacles. LuAnn, I'm 100% in your camp. I left this deep yearning desire for the platform and the masses and the millions. But I want to help more than one because I want my financial security. So, but the way I say it is one at a time. And that is really something that when you get into the idea of how goals, help to support, then LuAnn, you invoke the way it feels to really know that you're helping that one person. You're supporting that one person. And that is really, truly how we, weave together this conversation where when we feel that purposefulness. And I love you sharing the story with, your family member. And you're like, yo, you go do that. I'll stay here and do this. This is working for me,
Yeah, I think that really brings to your personal joy for yourself. I think goals can be, wonderful stepping stones where you can mark yourself some achievable goals that you set for yourself, achieve them, give yourself time to achieve it and things like that, and then keep going so that you develop into your vision. Because I don't think we could talk about purpose, goals, and mission without creating a vision. I think that kind of goes along with it, that we really need to have people really what I like to call, and I stole it from somebody, Imagineering, using our Imagineer to really engineer our vision for the future and what we see ourselves as, and then how we can back down and create those goals and those steps to live into that vision.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what I watch clients of mine do over and over again. Sometimes it's really hard to get them to write that big vision, but I will not take them to the action plan until they have the vision, right, Denise? I will not. Like, you got to create that big vision first. You got to own that feeling of having that which you want and building it, and then we go back and we create the action plan, and then those have deadlines and goals, etc. But otherwise, again, people just set goals and use them to beat themselves up. I'm going to lose 10 pounds by Christmas, and you don't, and then, oh, poor pitiful me, right? And so when we talk about passions, we don't put deadlines on by which time we will achieve them. No, And we have what we call markers, which are visual descriptions of what it will look like when I achieve and am living that passion. No timelines on any of that. All things in their right and perfect timing, and walk in faith with that it will unfold. Just like with my brother, it's okay if I have to take 3 years off and take care of him, because it will unfold in its right and perfect timing when I am living from my authentic truth, right? And my timelines.
That's a challenge for me, is the
Yeah.
timeline. Come on.
We're in a world of instant gratification.
I don't necessarily need it instantly, but it would be nice, sooner
I'd love to know, Monica or Diane, what are your thoughts about this? What are your challenges? What's on your mind with all of this?
Yeah, please unmute. This is.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting. I'm usually used to being in the seat where I'm leading the interview on my podcast. And so it's a fascinating place to sit here and be observant and to listen and to accumulate a global piece of information from different perspectives. And I'm enunciating those words on purpose because that's what's important to me. Observe, have awareness, collect the information, see something from a different perspective. So I'm appreciating the conversation, and at the end of our call, I'll share with you my little whiteboard brain is super active right now, and I've got some notes that I'd like to reflect back to you. But I think as coaches, it's really easy to talk about meaning and purpose. It's really easy to say, have a goal. The question I would kick back to the panel is, what is one thing that you do with your clients to connect the average person who might be experiencing a difficulty, that they're in the middle of what LuAnn calls kind of that beating them up? So how do you start to make the shift? As coaches, we've done a lot of our own personal work, right? We work with coaches, we work with healers, we know our own stuff. And we know as coaches, we have to work through our own stuff before and while we're trying to help other people work through theirs. But what do you say to the person who's like, I just don't even know how to start? That's my question. That's what's going through my head is how do we bring this back, like narrow it down to the simplest thing? I think of an example of when I was on paid administrative leave from my last job for a lot of reasons. They told me that my reporting station was my house between 8 and 4:30. And talk about feeling like I was imprisoned, right? I felt like I couldn't leave my house. And I remember this one time where I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go to a yoga class, right? I didn't have a goal other than get out of the house and do something different for my mind. Like, it wasn't a goal, it wasn't a mission, it wasn't a purpose. It was literally just, I have to do something different. So I guess I'd be looking for feedback. Like, how do we bring this back down to the starting point?
I think we always have to go back to our authentic self, redefine and reaffirm who we really are, what we want, the knowing of ourselves. And, we can reset always by going back to those values and redefining. So if you were in a job and it was great at first, and now you're in this place where you're unhappy or things aren't going your way, then we need to go back, and really redefine those things and then start moving forward again.
Back to center.
Good. Yeah. So in my situation,
center.
What I valued was freedom. I got tired of feeling like I was a prisoner. I got tired of waiting for the phone call. I got tired of someone else telling me what I could or couldn't do. And I didn't know it at the time, but in hindsight, I can now say I craved freedom. So going back to even just being able to name the one thing that's important to you in the moment sounds like a starting point.
Yeah, and without going into depth of how my process works, it is a journey of sort of unpeeling the onion and getting people to think about really what's most important to them. And then we make a huge list of those things, and then we prioritize it down to your top 5 passions so that you can focus on those 5 things. in the book, The Passion Test, they talk about how the neural pathways of the brain can only focus on 5 to 7 things, but that's not even true. The reality is, if you ask a neurologist, which I have, is that you should focus on one thing at a time, right? And so people who are in that situation are often overwhelmed by their circumstances. And let's just work on one thing. Okay, let's get you in a space where you're knowing what's important to you. And our key to living a passionate life is whenever you're faced with a choice, a decision, or an opportunity, consistently choose in favor of your passions. So it becomes a decision-making tool that guides your every decision every day and helps them get through that a little bit at a time. And I always say baby steps. Baby steps. What is the baby step you can say? You want to be more spiritual, closer to your God? What's the baby step you can do today? Well, I can take 10 minutes and read affirmations or from the Bible or whatever it is that's meaningful to you. Doesn't have to be this huge, ginormous thing. When I think of the word transformation, I think it scares people because it sounds like, oh my gosh, everything's going to change. Well, everything's changing all the time. And if you haven't learned that in the last 2 years, I don't know where you've been. So everything's changing all the time. So it's about taking the baby steps along with that work for you. Stop worrying about how you're going to get to the bottom line and just take the baby steps. It's faith. It's walking in faith. I think it was Jack Canfield who said, we drive down the road at night with headlights in front of us that only see about 20 feet. And whether we've been on that road before, we drive on that road with faith that it's going to keep going. Well, we have to have the same faith in our life and just deal with the baby steps right now to avoid the overwhelm and have faith that it's going to unfold in its right and perfect timing to the ultimate result I have in that big vision.
And for me, I'm 100% on with both comments so far. And for me, Diane, I love the question, what is that first step to get, into the car, LuAnn, or whatever? And for me, it comes down to feeling. I call it infusing soul intelligence into my work. And that is asking myself how I feel. And I do this every day. You said earlier, Diane, that as coaches, we should be self-coaching. Many coaches don't self-coach, but I think experts with the Living Healthy list do. And I ask myself this all the time. And so to get to the step, that next step and the next step, Lisa talks about how to be authentic. It stems from how do I feel? And to me, the way I view it, the soul is the place of deepest feeling. And that's where I start with clients. That's what I ask them that day that you were sitting in your house under those conditions. I do call that a goal. I've got to get out of here. I feel suffocated, or I think you said like in a prison. That started with I feel. And then you set a plan in motion and you took steps and you went to yoga. LuAnn just told us, sometimes those small things turn out to be the biggest things. We know what yoga does for your mind, your body, and your soul. And so, for you on that day, that was a goal. It was good enough. And it's possible, unless there was guilt or difficulty later as a result of your decision, you probably felt better going to yoga. Dealing with the ramifications, if there were any later, might be another step that you have to face. But honestly, it comes down to how do I feel in this moment right now?
That's really powerful. And I would challenge when this gets replayed, I would challenge our listeners to take 15 seconds at any given point in the day. I was working after my dream job. I was working in an environment where I had an individual that was kind of my adversary, so to speak. And I can remember feeling there would be times I was walking down one aisle of the store, and when I'd see the other person coming, I'd avoid them and go to the other aisle. And I actually put a mindfulness bell on my cell phone that had a chime that I set it to go off every hour. Because what I realized is I was feeling a lot, but I wasn't taking the time to acknowledge it or express it and get it out. And when I set the mindfulness bell on my phone, Every hour I'd hear a little bing, and it was a reminder for me to stop and say, okay, how am I feeling in the moment? And it was interesting because as a coach, I agree with you, understanding how you feel is one of the first steps, but I didn't realize that I wasn't checking in with myself. I was actually just doing everything else to avoid managing that feeling. And it became a get through the day, get through the next hour, get through the next hour. Okay, a week has gone by, 2 weeks have gone by, a month has gone by, nothing's changed. And so when that mindfulness thing, my question to myself was, how do I feel right now? And I think that's a huge action step that Living Healthy List can help people start to take, and that we should be taking, especially because of everything that's going on in the world.
And I love boiling it down to a simple question that you can ask yourself like that. Yeah. And it's about pausing. I have an article about taking pause, right? It's about taking a pause, taking a breath, which, as we talked about on Free Coaching Friday, right? I break the word resilience down to re-silence. Go back to center, re-silence, take a breath. And in that breath, whether it's 15 seconds, 15 minutes, whatever you need to understand your feelings in that moment, that allows you to determine how you want to respond instead of just reacting. How do I choose to be in this moment? Who do I choose to be in the world in this moment? Right? Even though I disagree with that person standing across from me, well, if it's me, I go give them a hug.
She would.
Right? Instead of creating an argument, that's my choice to go, okay, so we disagree, but I still love you because you're my fellow human being and I'm going to give you a hug. And I tell you what, every time I give somebody a hug in that case, they just melt. There's no anger anymore. You cannot be angry and give someone a hug. You can't do it. So if you're having a fight with your spouse, go give him a hug.
I call this my, I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No, that's all right.
I was just going to say, I developed many years ago what I call a 2-part seminal soul question. Who do I want to be and how do I want to be? And Diane, I ask myself that every day. And there's sometimes I ask myself that every hour, and often even more frequently. Who do I want to be? How do I want to be? And then, LuAnn, I often add, in this situation that you just mentioned, yes. Who do I want to be and how do I want to be? This is a check-in question for yourself that I love everything that we're all saying is easy, simple stuff that everyone can do. Hey, Monica, what's on your mind about all this? You're muted.
I was just going to ask.
Okay, well, I don't know where to start.
Baby steps, Monica, baby steps.
Well, one, it was a lot of good stuff, right? And so one of the things that, going back to Diane's question, is where to start. And Diane, and I think we all are coaches in some way or another. We all hit that aha moment. And a lot of times when you hit that aha moment, sometimes it's brought to you, sometimes you walk into it. It's that a lot of times is your starting point because you had an awareness and an awakening at that moment of this is it. And for me, and I'll go back to the pandemic, right before the pandemic started, I recognized I was one of my few of my friends that was single, no kids, and I love to travel. So most of my friends do not live in the same city that I'm in. And so I started something called Cocktails and Conversations. It was called the Cocktails and Conversation Tour. And I would go and literally plop myself down in a city and tell people where to find me. And you can either come and have dinner with me, or I was going to have dinner there anyway, because I was going to be able to explore the city. So I had an event set up there for myself. You can join me if you want to, but I was going on my solo trip, but I was also doing Cocktails and Conversations. Pandemic came and it, of course, eradicated that idea, but I'm going to start it again. But what I did during the pandemic is I started Coffee and Conversations, and I did a Zoom call and I sent it all out to all of my all of my girlfriends, and I said, if you just need someone to talk to and just be, coffee and cocktails, head wraps are welcomed. That meant you did not have to get dressed up to show up. None of that Zoom call stuff.
Right.
And they were like, oh, I meant to join in. Oh, I thought I was going to be there. And I was like, either you show up or you don't. I'm going to be there. And I did that for a few months. And some people would join in, and then we would work out some situations, or we would talk about whatever. But I recognized, going back to Susan's question and statement, what was my childhood? I can't remember who asked about what did you want to do as a child? And my whole thing is I wanted to be a PR specialist. And my mother shot that down. She told me, go be a secretary, go get a job. But that was coming from her experience. And I hate it today that I am a administrative assistant. But anyway, life continues. But I am in the process of designing my own happiness. And there comes the part where cocktails and conversations are going to happen, because that was my aha moment, my freedom choice. And most of my pictures in my artwork in my apartment reflect freedom. Actually, there's one in here called Freedom by Frank Morrison. If you ever want to look it up, she's beautiful. And my freedom and my happiness is in travel. My aunt and I talked about it just the other day, just yesterday. She says, when was the last time you were happy? And I said, the last time I was somewhere outside of this city. I am happiest when I'm traveling. I don't know anyone. No one knows me. I get to be me. I don't have to, show up at an event and hobnob. I don't have to put on an air. I just get to be me. I get to laugh as loud as I want to. I get to express myself however I want to. And there's no preconceived notion that I'm Etta's daughter, Donnie's sister, an Upton's girl. None of that is there. I am just Monica Denise, and I get to be whoever I want to be. And and there's the freedom of it all, Diane. It's like the authentic part of you is I just get to show up. And I think a lot of times we don't get to show up because we're in front of those that told us how to show up. So I used to deal with perfectionism. And I was working on my mother's birthday celebration. And I remember I was just delaying sending out the draft because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted the draft to be perfect. And finally I said, right, yeah. And I said, and in the email, I said, I stopped at excellence because you wouldn't even recognize my perfect. And when I typed it out, I realized that most people don't even know what perfect looks like. Most people aren't even used to excellence. We are so used to mediocrity that excellence is beyond what most people even know. So I am really just in awe of all of this. I'm loving the questions that you have to ask, but it then took me right back to why I want to do a conference, because connection is key. And because it's health and wellness and it all ties it together and I get to travel, it all makes sense that this is why this is what I am designed to do.
Well, Monica, I just got back from Hawaii late last night. And so I want to tell you that I traveled safely. I had an unusual opportunity to go. My daughter's fiance invited me to go because he was going to see his parents. And I said yes, even though my daughter wasn't there. And so I just said yes. And I went and I stayed at his family's home, his mother's home. It was beautiful. And Jess and I had an unusual opportunity to connect. He's going to be my future son-in-law. So I just said yes. And so I traveled safely, Monica. I was very aware of everything I was doing and how I wanted to be, and I wanted to travel. I did it safely. And so I encourage you to travel again in a safe way. And wherever it is that you want to go, if you want to design it, save for it, etc.
Oh, Susan, honey, I'm sorry. I do travel. I travel by myself.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I picked up one day and just went to Cuba before the weekend.
Good. Okay, because a lot of people are nervous about traveling. Good. Okay,
No,
good.
I travel by myself. I started traveling by myself when I turned 29. Actually, no, my 30th birthday.
Yeah.
I was 29 when I set out, and I went to New York City after being robbed at gunpoint while working at a hotel. And I told my therapist, this isn't working. I'm out of here. And
well, this is what you shared with us is a perfect example of what the topic has been today, which is resilience, right? Overcoming these things, and then purposefulness in your life, right? And that is the travel, and then your mission, and also the goals that it takes. Traveling is like little steps, now with the COVID test, there's all these things that you have to do. So it's really a perfect example of what we've been talking about today.
And that's what as we were talking this and I was making my side notes on one margin, all of these little things, like you say, you're connecting the dots, and all of a sudden it's like, yep, I've been doing it. It's kind of like a project, and all of a sudden all the dots come together and there's this beautiful picture. So it's dealing with a lot of different things. And those that were in the conversation or that are watching the conversation from Friday, there has been a lot of transition going on just during these last 24 months.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. So
coming through that has been, been a journey.
I hate to do this because this is always, we always have these amazing conversations, but we are wrapping up time. I don't want to go over. So we're getting to the top of the hour. And I want to see, I've taken, like you, Monica, I take a lot of notes too and I've got some real great notes. I'd love to have everyone kind of come back and give us all their tidbits offline. But what I really think, what came out of our conversation is it still boils down to mission, vision, goals. It still boils down to our core values, who we are, and being our authentic self.
Absolutely.
So mission, values, mission, goals. It's not that difficult when you start with who you are, what's important to you, and be your authentic self.
Awesome.
Sound about right? I love it.
Agreed.
Wonderful.
Excellent summary, Denise.
Thank you. I am going to just quickly promo what's going on still here at Living Healthy List in March. We have our next free coaching Friday. That will be March 18th. Susan Axelrod, our confidence coach, will be our featured expert that day. So please put it on your calendars, invite your friends, tell people that what we're doing, because truly what we're doing can only elevate others. We elevate ourselves, we elevate others, and we really can become this unified world that I think we all dream of. Thank you, everyone. We still have 2 minutes, so I'm gonna just open it up real quick and then we'll stop recording at the top of the hour. But if anybody has that last tidbit that they want to share, say, I know Diane, you had something that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, so real quick, purpose. I'm kind of a word nerd and I always like to understand the origin of a word. And, LuAnn, I love the fact that you said resilience is resilencing and coming back to center. So purpose, the Latin origin of purpose is proposere, to propose. So what if we all just made an agreement that to be on mission and to find our authentic selves, every day we make a small proposal to ourselves to listen to how we feel, to find our joy. And I wrote down 6 C's: create a shift, contribute in a way that makes you feel joyful, find your community, convert, obstacles to opportunities and have a conversation with yourself about who you want to be and what you want to be today. One small proposal to yourself is living in your purpose. Propose, to propose.
Nice.
Well, that's a much better wrap up than what I had.
That's the whiteboard brain, Denise.
Diane, if you would, will you send that to me? I'd like to share that with everyone again.
Absolutely.
That was brilliant. So again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you. I love all of you. I'm so proud of what we're doing here, raising each other up, raising up others, and truly standing in our own authenticity and creating those resilient relationships within ourselves and others. So thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.